We're going to be moving at hypersonic speeds,
45 minutos já de tempo percorrido.
speed of sound. We're going to see that plasma start to build. So,
E aí começa a reentrada. E aí começa a reentrada. Começa a reentrada. Começa a reentrada neste momento na atmosfera. A Starship começa a reentrada na atmosfera neste momento.
Exactly. We've been talking about this entire flight test. There's 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles surrounding the bottom portion or the earth-facing side of the ship.
100 kilometers altitude, good altitude for entry.
Great call-outs there. Now, during atmospheric reentry, the vehicle is going to see temperatures as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit or over 1,400 degrees Celsius. So those tiles are there to help protect the vehicle from this extreme heat.
Yeah, and the flaps will help control it. Now, one noticeable difference I see immediately, those flaps are not moving as much as they were on Flight 3. So that is a great sign, right? We had unplanned loss of roll control on Flight 3, so we added some additional thrusters. And we can see that they're working well, and we have a much more stable view. So those flaps, there's 4 of them, 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. They're made out of stainless steel. And yeah, they help steer the ship, which, as we can see, the plasma continuing to build. Now, if the ship survives re-entry, it will have to perform a flip maneuver, as well as a landing burn. We saw this demonstrated in a couple of high-altitude flight tests back in like 2020, 2021. Similarly,
temperatures increasing on the nose within expected ranges.
Great news there. It sounds like the temperatures that we are getting during this point, which again, we usually don't get during spaceflight because of this plasma. We're getting this live. This is a great news.
Reentrada segue sem nenhum problema.
For example, the serial number 10 test that we saw a couple of years ago. We're hoping to duplicate that again today. Hopefully, we will see it live. And basically, the 3 center engines of the ship will reignite and gimbal or point to help flip the ship until those engines are pointing down so that it can land vertically using Raptor's thrust.
85 kilometros.
Even from the beginning of the program, we've designed Starship to land on Mars where there are no runways or other humans to help out. We also want rapid reusability, so we're doing...
The vehicle is passing through 85 kilometers altitude. The flaps have control of the vehicle.
Great news. Flaps have control of the vehicle. That's exactly what we want to hear for this flight test.
Yeah.
Again, we are going to be doing a propulsive landing instead of a more traditional means like parachutes. And we are expecting re-entry to begin here in just about a minute. Re-entry.
80 quilômetros de altitude.
Awesome view that we have here.
Lindas imagens, lindas imagens.
This is the same view that we had when we first returned from the coast phase. Again, this is looking at the side of one of the flaps. It's incredible that literally at the bottom of this picture, we're basically looking through plasma, which is just absolutely mind-blowing.
Wild, very wild.
78 quilômetros de altitude.
Entry to begin here in about 30 seconds or so.
Entrada segue estável.
Entry to splashdown is expected to last about 6 minutes long. And that flip maneuver should occur around about 10 minutes before splashdown.
Momentos aí de tensão aí.
And such incredible views that we're getting.
Approaching peak heating region.
Great call-outs there.
Yeah, these views are absolutely astounding.
74 quilômetros. Até agora segue normal. 49 minutos de tempo percorrido. Estamos acompanhando então a reentrada do Starship.
So once again, this view is basically looking down into the plasma blanket that is building up around the exterior of Starship. It is traveling, as you can see on your screen. You can look in the bottom right-hand corner and see how fast it's going, how high it is, as well as the general orientation. Again, we're seeing a lot more stability, a lot more control here on this flight, which is great. It shows that the iterations, the learning...
Starship is now in expected peak heating region.
All right, great news there, telling us that this is basically the hottest point that Starship should get during its re-entry. Now, the heat shield is working with the
Estamos aí
atmosphere
próximos aí do
for some,
momento
like,
do pouso na
free
água do
braking,
Starship,
okay?
50
The
km de
atmosphere is
altitude.
helping
50
to slow
minutos
the
de missão
Starship down.
tempo
Yeah,
percorrido.
exactly. We're not using any
Reentrada
engines
segue
or thrust
estável.
to slow the vehicle down. Exactly what Kate mentioned. We're just using the atmosphere and those heat shield tiles protecting the vehicle as it's coming through that high heat temperature.
Yeah. Now, this is another one of those moments that we have been waiting for. Right now, the ship is currently re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, and by all looks and all call-outs that we're hearing on the net, it is doing pretty well. Now, we do not plan to recover the spacecraft today, but rapid and reliable reusability is the ultimate goal.
68 km de altitude.
Just pausing to just take in this incredible new
Starship
and
então
different view
segue
that we're
a sua
seeing.
reentrada.
We did get a similar view in Flight 3, but again, the vehicle did lose a little bit of its control, attitude control, and this is a very stable view. This is great. This is exactly what we want, and we are hearing that we're getting expected call-outs.
Que momento.
Starship is seeing half a G of acceleration, remains on a good entry trajectory.
You know, it's incredible to look at this photo and wonder, wait, is it real? Is it frozen? You know, we can see so I was just going to say
Those temperatures have stopped increasing.
Oh, that is great news. The temperature is no longer building. But I was saying, like, we have a little bit of indication there. We can see that streaking that occurs and tells us that this is indeed a true view. So once again, we are looking
68 km de altitude.
That is building up around the exterior of the ship.
Em ordem.
And I still cannot get over that we are getting a live view of re-entry right now.
10 horas 42 minutos pelo horário de
Brasília. We've said this over and
Brasília.
over, but all thanks to Starlink. We are able to use Starlink in space, which we're getting this incredible data. And not only just the data from the sensors, but getting live imagery of what is actually happening, which is great, which we've never been able to do live before.
Right. Now, just a quick future outlook here. So in about, let's see, at T plus about 1 hour and 2 minutes, we should hear a call out for entry transonic. That means that the ship is going near the speed of sound. And then about a minute after that, we'll hear another call out saying entry subsonic, meaning that the ship is going below the speed of sound.
68 km de
So these are
altitude.
all continued indications that the
Estamos aí com
atmosphere,
quase
right,
53
as the
minutos de
ship
tempo
comes back
percorrido.
down, it is getting through the more dense part of the atmosphere, and that atmosphere
Estamos aguardando o
is
momento do
helping to push
toque
against
na
the
água
vehicle,
do
and those heat
Starship.
shields are protecting the vehicle during this high heat period.
Yeah, Kate and Jesse, we're starting to see as the atmosphere gets denser, you're starting to see a few more particles make an appearance in the plasma there. You can see you're looking down at the aft end of the ship in the top left, and you're seeing essentially the flame build up as we go through reentry. You've been hearing the call-outs. They're tracking things like temperatures in the nose cone, and those were right where we modeled them to be, which is really cool to see and to see in real time. But we're coming up. We're at about 67 kilometers in altitude. Our last signal with the ship on Flight 3 was at 65, so we should be making it past that point shortly. Obviously, as you guys pointed out, we're in a much better control this time as we re-entered in the right attitude, and our flaps have been steering the way so far. Once we get through transonic, that's when you've got essentially
Raptor landing bird.
Different areas around the vehicle where the air is either moving faster or slower than the speed of sound. We'll eventually get to subsonic, which we have some experience with. We did in our suborbital campaign.
Start of Raptor chill.
And Starship will eventually get down to its terminal velocity as it's floating down to the water. That's just about 200 miles an hour or so.
Quase no fim da reentrada.
We're starting to chill some of the engines as we are. If we make it all the way down to the water, still going to attempt to land, but still a ways to go. We're at about 64 kilometers in altitude right now. We made it through what's expected to be the peak heating, But now we're going to start encountering increased pressures as the atmosphere gets thicker and thicker. So we're at 63 kilometers, so we've already made it farther than we did on our last flight when that last signal was coming at 65 kilometers. So again, what we're really looking at here is the performance of the heat shield, of the flaps, of the seals in the flaps. There's just a whole bunch of different areas that we're keeping a really close eye on as we re-enter.
Starship remains on a good entry trajectory.
And looking like we're still on a good trajectory. If you're seeing little camera moves, that's the flap moving as it continues to maintain the attitude of the vehicle as it re-enters.
Flaps seguem em ordem. Reentrada estável.
And I mean, not just camera views, but we've got sensors inside the ship. We've got those sensors
Atenção aí,
down
pessoal da
at the very
Austrália, hein?
aft end of the vehicle, where we pointed out we had some intentionally missing tiles, where we've got some sensors looking at just how hot it's getting around there. We intentionally put those in essentially the least critical part of the heat shield, where if you had any kind of a breach, it wouldn't be great for reusability, but wouldn't be critical for actual making it through the entry into the landing.
Estamos com 58 km de altitude.
58 kilometers. We're continuing to descend. Again, right now we are over the Indian Ocean. We're actually getting closer and closer to that expected splashdown point, which is just to the off the northwest corner of Australia. And if you keep an eye on our speed, the speed is dropping.
57 minutos de tempo percorrido.
The atmosphere now, the speed's going to start dropping precipitously. We're going to start getting to transonic pretty soon, and then after that we'll get into subsonic, where we're moving less than the speed of sound. But wow, what a light show so
Lindas
far.
imagens aí da reentrada. Segue estável. E tivemos aí chamas ali, né? Tá com
External temperatures are starting to come down.
Again,
vai tudo em ordem.
this camera view is looking right at one of the forward flaps. And we're strategically putting some cameras around the vehicle to just look at the different areas that looks like we got the flap starting to come apart a little.
Yeah, it does appear that we have a little bit of burn through there. We can see pieces of the vehicle flying off. What a show it has been. It's been like watching Interstellar or something.
This is wild to see this, but the ship is still coming down, which is incredible to see.
How far can it go? That is the question.
Keep your eye on the altitude
Estão
in the
vendo
bottom
pedaços aí
right-hand corner. We're
saindo
at 54
do flap.
kilometers right now.
Mas por enquanto
Now,
segue ainda
ultimately,
estável.
the data is the payload today. We've been saying it multiple times. Our teams are sitting, reviewing this data live, learning where the hot spots are.
Então,
As you can
pedaços do
see,
flap
there's an
estão
obvious
se
hot spot
soltando.
there with the flap, and learning how we can improve this design. The goal was to get as far through this high heat re-entry as possible. Ideally, we'd love to make it all the way down and perform that,
por enquanto segue
land
estável.
and burn and flip maneuver, but we may not get that far today. We will see.
Again, this is a test, and we are gathering as much data as possible, visual data as well, which we can see here. We are getting a lot of debris covering the camera on your screen, but we can still see some of those sparks and flames from that high heat as ship is making its way back down to Earth.
Ship now at 50 kilometers. And
50
closing.
km de altitude.
The good news is we still got, looks like that camera lens just
Continuamos
cracked.
aí estável.
It's safe to say ship's getting a little beat up, but that's to be expected on a test flight. We are still learning how to improve the ship for total survival and recovery of the high heat reentry.
I'm honestly impressed that we're still getting this live view despite how much debris is coming off of this flap right now.
The fact that we've got it is good news.
E perdemos contato. E perdemos contato.
I apologize.
E voltamos com o sinal. Voltamos com o sinal. Reentrada concluída. Reentrada concluída com sucesso. Reentrada concluída. 1 hora de voo.
There's still a sizable crowd here at Mission Control Center, Hawthorne.
A splashdown is expected in just about 4 minutes from now.
Estamos aguardando o momento do pouso agora do toque na água. Vamos lá.
We're still moving. We still have live views. Starlink is doing an incredible job.
Maximum entry dynamic pressure. External temperatures are dropping.
Okay, good news. Those external pressures are dropping. The question is, how much the ship is left? We can't really tell. We can still see some of that.
Estamos com 1 hora de missão percorrida. 44 km de altitude.
But for any photographers out there and videographers, we know that's part of the gig sometimes.
Yeah, and you can see that the speed is rapidly slowing down. That's actually really great news for us. We want the vehicle to be slowing down before it splashes down into the ocean. That'll help set us up for that flip maneuver, engines first down into the water.
Que é uma beleza, né?
Exactly. So we have seen this flip maneuver demonstrated on previous high altitude flight tests like serial number 8. Oh, more views.
41 km de
more light
altitude.
coming through the view that we have through that
1 hora e 1 minuto.
and dirtied lens there. But yeah, so we're hoping that this flip maneuver that we can pull it off. As soon as we get those views back, if we can get them, if the ship is still around, we will bring it back to you.
Vehicle has passed maximum dynamic pressure.
Mas ainda segue.
That is great news. Maximum dynamic pressure being the moment in which the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic pressure. Speed still dropping. We're now at 37 kilometers above the ocean.
37 km, 36.
Just like Flight 3, we are targeting a splashdown in the water in the Indian Ocean.
35.
And we don't have a live view right now, but because we're still getting data and telemetry, that does tell us that ship is still doing okay, at least.
33. Voltamos com imagens. Voltamos com as imagens. Voltamos com as imagens.
Despite not being able to see very much, the fact that it's there tells us the ship is still alive.
Yes, and collecting data.
30 kilometros.
Data as we get closer and closer to Earth.
Yes, now 30 kilometers, now 29 above the Indian Ocean.
Starship is at 30 kilometers altitude, Mach 2.
Mach 2.
Sounds like the vehicle's traveling, as we just heard,
28.
Mach 2, which is, looks like we might...
26 kilometros.
I thought maybe it might clear up. It is a little bit. Now at T plus 1 hour, 3 minutes and 13 seconds into Starship Flight 4, hoping that the ship can hang on. It's probably potentially hanging on by a couple of bolts and threads, but it's still going, and that is excellent news.
That deceleration is looking incredible. We're about to go under 1,000 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
Starship is at 20 kilometers altitude.
Now keep in mind that even though we can't see anything,
estamos indo pro... Opa, os flaps estão funcionando. Os flaps estão indo bem. 16.
Subsonic, they're telling us
estamos em subsônico agora. Estamos estável. Os flaps ali estão funcionando. 14 quilômetros. Lindo.
This is a nail biter.
12 kilometros.
But we are, unfortunately, we can't see through the lens, but we're still getting the feed. Starship is now 11 kilometers over the
10
ocean.
quilômetros de altitude.
All this data is incredibly important.
Guardando o momento do pouso.
You know, it breaks up right now.
Olha os flaps aí. Os flaps funcionam. 8 quilômetros.
Okay, the next milestone will be initiation of the flip maneuver and landing.
Estamos iniciando o momento do procedimento do pouso do Starship. 6 quilômetros. 1 hora 4 minutos de voo. 5 quilômetros. 1 hora 5 minutos.
And the crowd is very excited to get this view of that flap still maneuvering.
Starship is passing through 5 kilometers altitude.
3 quilômetros. Momento do pouso. 2 quilômetros.
We're getting very close to splashdown.
These fireflies are such a good sign of life right now. We wish we could see more, but we'll take it.
1 quilômetro.
Starship is at 2 kilometers altitude, terminal velocity.
1 quilômetro.
Landing beam startup for Starship.
All right.
Que lindo.
Landing bird startup.
Vamos aguardar o momento do pouso agora. Estamos na vertical.
Starship is in landing burn.
Landing burn.
Landing burn shutdown.
Landing burn shutdown.
The landing burn shutdown was commanded.
Pousou. 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 Ah, caralho. Starship pousa com sucesso na água.
Wow. I mean, it
Splashdown do Starship. Splashdown.
What we could actually see, but we were able to hear the ship did its landing burn. It sounded
Starship
like we might have got
shutdown.
2 engines. And there's the final call for landing burn shutdown. But we'll go back through all the data. But we did get confirmation that a landing burn took place. Starship
Conseguimos.
made it through re-entry and did its first ever landing burn.
Sucesso.
From South Texas to the other side of the Earth, Starship is in the water.
Olha o patrão lá.
What a day. What a day, guys. Yeah.
Incrível. Dia mágico.
That was absolutely
Starship
incredible.
teste realizado com